Hello everyone, I'm Patricia Osseweyer. In this unit we will discuss the benefits of the bio-based economy for society and sustainability. Once a photograph of this earth, taken from the outside, is available, a new idea as powerful as any in history will be let loose. These words were spoken in 1948 by Fred Hoyle. Indeed, when Apollo 8 astronauts pointed their cameras at the Earth, this was the first time that people saw Earth as an isolated ball of life hanging in space, separated from the emptiness around it by only a thin veil of atmosphere. Frank White named it the overview effect, the realization that we are all on spaceship Earth and thus responsible for our own survival. How can a bio-based economy help to create a more sustainable world? Looking back at drivers for a bioeconomy, of course there are challenges of decreasing reserves of fossil resources and increasing price volatility. A bio-based economy can improve energy security and lower greenhouse gas emissions. An important reason is also to add value and sustainability to the food chain. This could be reached by improving sustainability of agriculture and also looking at the co-production of bio-based products. So let's look at the definition of sustainable development. The definition of sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This definition was formulated in a commission led by Brundtland in 1987. Another definition that was made by the United Nations World Commission on Sustainable Development is looking for a balance between what one desires and what is possible, between human activity and the carrying capacity of the system Earth and the repairing capacity of this system. Oxfam, an international non-governmental organization, made this diagram. You can see that it's not only the safe and just space for humanity, but that they actually take many more factors into account: food, health, gender, equality, jobs, and many others. So sustainability is quite complex. For some people, it's durability, creating products that last very long. For others, it's related to biodegradability and avoiding plastic waste mountains. Or it has to do with environmental friendliness. Make sure it results from fair trade, be safe in using, avoid genetically modified organisms, be organic and economically viable. There are many interpretations of sustainability. Now, some of these factors are measurable, while others are more value oriented and much more difficult or non measurable. These are general concepts. When looking at sustainability, we usually take three dimensions into account. All economic, ecological, and social impacts are considered. And when we wish to know the sustainability of our new product, we have to measure the impact of this product for all three categories. Normally, we compare it to its fossil equivalent. So, how to measure sustainability? For environmental impact, life cycle assessment methodology is often used. In a life cycle assessment, you consider the process as a whole or separate parts of it, depending on what you want to compare and therefore how you set the boundary limits. Assessing the entire process, including the initial capture and final release of CO2, is referred to as a cradle to cradle assessment. In week 5, we will dive into this methodology in much greater detail. Legal frameworks are developed to report on industry emissions. For this, we know four scopes: the direct emissions related to the production process, the indirect emissions related to the energy used. Scope 3 are the indirect emissions related to the business practice, suppliers, use of products, etc. And Scope 4 emissions refer to the emission reductions that occur outside of a value chain or the life cycle of a product, which are also commonly referred to as avoided emissions. Sustainable industry strives for net zero emissions, which requires innovation in the production process, but also changes in business management and employers' behavior. A most important driver for innovation is whether the business case is viable. Is the proposed production design profitable? Is the investment earned back in a limited number of years? Only then will banks and other investors be willing to provide finance to build the process plant. There are many factors that influence the overall costs and returns. The choice in each of the separate parts of the bio-based production process have an effect on the overall economic performance. Because economic viability is so important, there will be attention to financial aspects throughout this course. In evaluating the overall finances of a production process, the hardware investment, for example, the costs of the land, the building, the equipment, etc., is added up under the category capital expenditures or capex. These costs are related to purchasing the necessary capital to set up the process facility. These capital expenditures are separated from all the costs associated with operating the facility. Operational expenditures or OPEX. In OPEX, we include all variable costs spent over a year, such as the purchase of raw materials, the auxiliary costs like energy and water, operating personnel, transportation costs, interest, etc. Additionally, there are costs resulting from legislation and taxes. Here, it is important to realize that there's often a trade-off between costs. Installing more sophisticated machinery could increase capital expenditures while saving money on operating the process. Selling the final products at a certain price generates annual revenues. To calculate how much money a process makes, the gross profits are calculated by deducting the OPEX from the revenues. Further deducting depreciation, other expenditures and taxes will give a net profit or equity. Now you can calculate the payback time of the overall investment in the startup of the facility. The overall economic performance of a process over time can then be assessed using well-known economic indicators such as the net present value and the internal rate of return, which you will see later on in the course. Social sustainability is the most difficult aspect of sustainability. It's much more difficult to measure what the social impact of a novel technology or product is, and there are many different perceptions. You may be familiar with cartoons that address the use of food crops for instance, biofuels productions. So properly assessing social sustainability requires some more thought. This involves assessing employment along the value chain, the effect on food security in urban and rural local areas, or on a global scale and social well-being in local communities. Technology itself can also be analyzed, even how technologies are safe, acceptable in, or beneficial to a community, and whether the benefits of the new production of bio-based products are equally distributed. Can we do this? Sure, we can. This example of the clean shipping project of my group. More and more case studies show that designs can take social sustainability into account, acting with local stakeholders and addressing local and global issues, challenges, and opportunities. So, in summary, what are now the design benefits of bio-based production for a society? Well, this would include less pressure on climate change, improved recycling and less depletion, better quality products while using all components, a safer environment and production chain, improved social development for the growing poor rural populations, and more resilience to extreme weather events. And this all may lead to political independence. In other words, design to meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, sustainable design is also design for global justice. Join us in the next unit.